The quantum beacon pulsed in an irregular rhythm, its crystalline core emanating waves of energy that defied conventional physics. Dr. Sarah Chen stood transfixed in the control room of Earth's deep space listening post-alpha, her eyes fixed on readings that shouldn't have been possible. 20 years of searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, and now this, a signal that bore all the hallmarks of advanced technology, yet displayed patterns that suggested desperate urgency. "General Hayes needs to see this," she whispered, her fingers already flying across the holographic interface. The signal's complexity was beyond anything humanity had encountered, carrying information densities that made Earth's most advanced quantum computers look primitive by comparison. Within hours, the highest levels of Earth's unified government had assembled in the underground command center beneath Geneva. The room hummed with tension as military leaders, scientists, and political figures gathered around a central holographic display. General Marcus Hayes, a veteran of Earth's unification wars, stood with his weathered hands clasped behind his back, watching as Dr. Chen presented her findings. "The signal contains more than just communication protocols," she explained, manipulating the hologram to show complex data structures. "It's a complete technological blueprint, a cultural archive, and—" She paused, her voice catching a warning. The hologram shifted, showing images that made several attendees step back involuntarily. Entire solar systems being systematically dismantled, planets reduced to their constituent atoms by entities that defied conventional understanding. The Void Hunters, as the message named them, weren't just conquering civilizations, they were erasing them from existence. The Meridians, the species sending this message, claimed to be part of a galactic coalition that's been fighting these entities for centuries. Dr. Chen continued, "They've lost thousands of worlds. Their most advanced weapons barely slow the hunters down. And now," she brought up a star chart that made the room fall silent, "they're heading toward Earth." General Hayes stepped forward, his cybernetic eye whirring as it analyzed the data. "How long?" 8 months, maybe less," Dr. Chen replied. "The Meridians chose to contact us because they've been watching humanity for decades. They saw something in us that they believe might be the key to survival." Ambassador Liu, Earth's chief diplomat, raised an eyebrow. "What could we possibly offer against an enemy that defeated civilizations centuries ahead of us technologically?" Dr. Chen's next words would change the course of human history. "The Meridians believe our greatest weakness is actually our greatest strength. Unlike most advanced species, humans never fully separated biological evolution from technological advancement. We didn't just build AI, we merged with it. We didn't just create tools, we adapted ourselves to use them better. Every other species chose either pure biological or pure technological advancement. We chose both." The room erupted in discussion, but Hayes raised a hand for silence. "Show us the rest," he commanded. The hologram shifted again, revealing the Meridians themselves, crystalline beings of pure energy and thought, beautiful but utterly alien. Their message continued, explaining how they had dismissed humanity centuries ago as too primitive, too chaotic, too divided. Now, facing extinction, they saw those same traits as potential salvation. "They're offering us everything," Dr. Chen explained, her voice filled with wonder. "Their entire technological database, star maps of regions we've never seen, weapons technology beyond our comprehension. All they ask in return is that we fight." General Hayes smiled, an expression that had preceded some of humanity's greatest victories. "They're not asking us to fight," he corrected. "They're giving us a chance to prove what humans do best: adapt, overcome, and rewrite the rules of the game." Within hours, Earth's response was drafted. Humanity would join the fight, but not as junior partners or desperate allies. Earth would fight as it always had, on its own terms, with strategies no other species would consider, using methods that defied conventional wisdom. The Meridians had sought help from what they thought was a primitive species. Instead, they had awakened a force that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of warfare, survival, and evolution itself. Humanity was going to war, and for the first time in galactic history, the Void Hunters would face an enemy that didn't play by the rules of conventional warfare. As the response was transmitted back through the quantum beacon, Dr. Chen couldn't help but smile. The Meridians had no idea what they had just unleashed. They had asked for humanity's help, but they were about to witness humanity's full potential, a force that had turned its own planets, obstacles into stepping stones, its limitations into advantages, and its divisions into strength through diversity. The war for survival was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy why Earth's children had never stopped evolving, never stopped adapting, and never, ever accepted defeat as final. The laboratories beneath Mount Cheyenne buzzed with an energy that bordered on chaos. 3 weeks had passed since Earth's response to the Meridian distress call, and humanity's greatest minds had transformed the facility into something that would have been unrecognizable to its original designers. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the central research hub, surrounded by holographic displays showing simulations that merged human biology with Meridian technology in ways that shouldn't have been possible. It's not about matching their technological level, she explained to the assembled team of military officers and scientific advisors. It's about changing the fundamental nature of combat itself. Her hands moved through the holographic interface, showing how human neural patterns interacted with Meridian quantum matrices in ways the aliens had never considered. Commander David Chen, head of Earth's newly formed Adaptive Warfare Division, watched with interest as the simulations played out. His cybernetic enhancements, originally designed for deep space exploration, hummed as they processed the data. The Meridians built their technology to be perfect, he observed. We're building ours to be unpredictable. The central display showed their first prototype, the Neural Combat System. Unlike traditional military hardware, these weren't just weapons or armor. They were extensions of human consciousness, designed to evolve and adapt in real time based on their users' thoughts and experiences. Where Meridian technology sought perfection through pure energy manipulation, human innovation had created something entirely new. "Watch this," Dr. Patel said, initiating a combat simulation. The holographic display showed a human operator facing off against a simulated Void Hunter. As the hunter deployed its conventional attack patterns, the human's neural-linked system didn't just respond. It evolved. Each microsecond of combat generated new strategies, new approaches, new ways of thinking about the very nature of warfare. General Hayes entered the laboratory, his presence immediately drawing attention. "The Meridians just sent another data packet," he announced. "They're confused by our approach. They expected us to simply adopt their technology wholesale." Dr. Patel smiled. "They still don't understand. We're not trying to become them. We're becoming something entirely new." She brought up another display, showing how human DNA was being mapped onto quantum matrices, creating hybrid systems that were neither purely biological nor purely technological. The prototype armaments lying on nearby workbenches looked deceptively simple. What appeared to be standard combat rifles contained neural interfaces that could reconfigure their entire structure based on the user's combat experience. Armor systems didn't just protect. They learned, adapted, and evolved with each engagement. The real breakthrough came when we stopped thinking about technology as something separate from ourselves, Commander Chen explained. Every other species tried to perfect their tools. We're perfecting the connection between tool and user. The demonstration continued, showing how human battle tactics were being integrated with Meridian energy manipulation techniques, where the aliens saw combat as a pure expression of technological superiority. Humanity approached it as a dance between intuition and innovation. Dr. Patel's team had made another crucial discovery. The Void Hunters, for all their apparent invincibility, operated on predictable patterns. They were perfect in their execution, but utterly lacking in creativity. They had never faced an enemy that could change its fundamental nature mid-battle. "We're ready for the first field tests," Dr. Patil announced. The neural integration systems are stable, and the quantum matrices are responding to human thought patterns better than we initially projected. General Hayes nodded, his expression grave but determined. The Meridians are sending their remaining fleet to Earth. They think they're coming to protect us while we prepare. They don't realize we're already prepared, just not in the way they expected. The first wave of human volunteers had already begun training with the new systems. They weren't just learning to use new weapons, they were learning to become something more than human. The neural interfaces allowed them to process information at quantum speeds while maintaining the uniquely human ability to think laterally, to find solutions where none should exist. There's something else, Commander Chen added, bringing up new data streams. We've been analyzing the Void Hunters' attack patterns across different star systems. They're not just destroying civilizations, they're absorbing them, converting them into pure computational resources. But they've never encountered a species that could change its own computational nature in real time. The implications were clear. Humanity wasn't just preparing for a defensive war. They were about to introduce chaos into a system that relied on perfect order. The Void Hunters had spent millennia consuming species that either fought with pure technology or pure biological advantages. They had never faced an enemy that could be both and neither at the same time. As the first training squads began their exercises in the massive underground chambers, their neural-linked combat systems evolving and adapting with each passing moment, Earth's leaders realized they weren't just preparing to fight a war. They were about to revolutionize the very nature of warfare itself. The Meridians had asked for help in their desperate hour. Instead, they were about to witness the birth of a new kind of warrior, one that combined the best of biological evolution with technological advancement, all guided by that uniquely human trait, the ability to look at the impossible and see opportunity. The Meridian flagship, Eternal Dawn, hung in high orbit above Earth, its crystalline structure refracting sunlight in ways that made it seem almost alive. Inside its command center, High Admiral Zexra watched in barely concealed confusion as the first wave of human warships emerged from their lunar bases. Their designs defied all known principles of advanced space combat doctrine. These vessels, Zexra's translator matrix struggled to convey their bewilderment. They appear incomplete. The human ships looked almost crude compared to the sleek Meridian vessels, their hulls marked with what appeared to be deliberate imperfections. Captain Sarah Rodriguez, Earth's liaison to the Meridian fleet, smiled. "They're not incomplete, Admiral. They're adaptable." She gestured to the tactical display, where dozens of human vessels were forming up in configurations that made no sense to conventional military doctrine. Every imperfection you see is a potential point of evolution. The first phase of Operation Lightbringer was about to begin. While the Meridians had expected Earth to spend months studying their advanced technology, humanity had instead spent those weeks rewriting the rules of space combat. The human ships weren't just vessels. They were living weapons platforms, each one linked directly to its crew through the neural interface systems. "Void Hunter vessels detected," announced the Meridian sensor officer. 3 harvest fleets approaching from different vectors. The tactical display showed the enemy ships, each one a perfect geometric shape that seemed to deny the very nature of organic existence. General Hayes, commanding from the Earth flagship Prometheus, gave the order that would change the course of the war. "All ships, initiate combat evolution protocols. Show them what humanity does best." What happened next left the Meridian observers speechless. As the Void Hunters launched their first attack, the human fleet didn't just respond, it transformed. Ships that had appeared crude and unfinished began to change, their structures flowing like liquid metal, adapting in real time to the enemy's attack patterns. "Impossible," Zexra whispered as they watched a human cruiser take a direct hit from a Void Hunter weapon, only to absorb the energy and use it to fuel its own transformation. The neural links between crews and ships allowed for instantaneous tactical decisions that no conventional combat eye could match. The space between Earth and Mars became a battlefield unlike any the galaxy had ever witnessed. Where the Void Hunters attacked with perfect, predictable patterns, human ships responded with controlled chaos. Each vessel evolved differently based on its crew's intuitions and experiences, creating a combat doctrine that was impossible to predict or counter. Commander Elena Santos, leading a squadron of evolutionary frigates, demonstrated why humanity had chosen this approach. As her ships engaged a Void Hunter destroyer, they didn't just exchange fire, they learned. Each hit they took, each maneuver they made, fed into the neural networks that linked ship and crew. Within minutes, her squadron had developed counters to weapons that had devastated entire alien civilizations. They're adapting, Dr. Paddle reported from her command station on the Prometheus. The Void Hunters are trying to analyze our combat patterns, but they can't because we're not using patterns. Each ship, each crew, is fighting in a unique way that evolves moment by moment. The battle reached its crescendo as the human fleet executed a maneuver that would have been suicide with conventional ships. Instead of avoiding a massive energy burst from the lead Void Hunter vessel, they flew directly into it. Their adaptive hulls absorbed the energy, used it to fuel further evolution, and emerged transformed into configurations that even their own designers hadn't predicted. Neural synchronization at 300% of projected capacity, reported Commander Chen. The ships aren't just adapting to the enemy, they're adapting to each other, creating synergies we never planned for. The Void Hunters, faced with an enemy that defied their perfect calculations, began to show signs of confusion. Their attacks became less coordinated, their responses slower, as they tried to compute countermeasures against a force that changed faster than they could analyze. High Admiral Zexra watched in amazement as the human fleet, which had appeared primitive and ungainly just hours before, systematically dismantled the most feared fighting force in known space. "Your species," they transmitted to Captain Rodriguez, "you've achieved something we thought impossible. You've introduced uncertainty into a perfectly ordered system." As the last Void Hunter vessel retreated, its perfect geometric form, now scared and broken, General Hayes transmitted a message to all ships. "This is just the beginning. Today we prove that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our biology. It's our ability to change, to adapt, to evolve." The Void Hunters thought they were facing a primitive species, learning to use advanced technology. Instead, they faced something they've never encountered before, a species that turns unpredictability into an art form. The battle was over, but its implications were only beginning to ripple through the galaxy. Humanity had done more than win a fight. They had demonstrated a new form of warfare that combined the precision of advanced technology with the unpredictable creativity of the human mind. The Void Hunters had finally met an enemy they couldn't simply analyze and counter, and the galaxy was about to learn why humanity's apparent chaos was actually its greatest strength. In the aftermath of Operation Lightbringer, the Void Hunters did something they had never done before. They hesitated. Deep within the quantum computing core of the Prometheus, Dr. Maya Patel and her team watched as enemy fleet movements changed from their usual precise patterns to something that almost looked like uncertainty. "They're trying to understand us," Commander Chen observed, his cybernetic enhancements processing the tactical data streams. And that's exactly what we wanted. The massive holographic display showed Void Hunter vessels moving in new formations, attempting to adapt their perfect strategies to counter humanity's chaotic approach. The Meridian High Council had convened an emergency session aboard their flagship. Their crystalline forms pulsed with energy patterns that indicated intense debate. High Admiral Zexra addressed the assembled human leadership with what their translation matrix identified as reverence. "Your victory was not just military," they transmitted. "You've introduced an element the Void Hunters cannot process, genuine unpredictability. But their response troubles us. They're attempting to evolve." General Hayes smiled. "That's exactly what we expected. In fact, it's what we hoped for." He nodded to Dr. Patel, who brought up a new series of simulations. You see, the Void Hunters' greatest strength, their perfect adaptation, is about to become their greatest weakness. The next phase of Earth's strategy was already in motion. While the enemy studied the battle data from their first encounter, trying to develop countermeasures, humanity was deliberately evolving in new and unexpected ways. The neural integration systems that had seemed so crude to the Meridians were becoming more sophisticated with each passing hour. "We're not just fighting them," Dr. Puddle explained. "We're teaching them to fight like us. And that's a battle they cannot win." The holographic displays showed how the Void Hunters' attempts to counter human tactics were actually making them more vulnerable. In the training chambers beneath Mount Cheyenne, a new generation of mirror-linked warriors was emerging. They had taken the lessons from the first battle and transformed them into something even more revolutionary. Where the first wave of adaptable ships had surprised the enemy, the second wave would shatter their fundamental understanding of warfare. Lieutenant Maria Santos, daughter of Commander Elena Santos, led a demonstration that left even veteran military observers speechless. Her neural-linked combat unit didn't just adapt to threats. It predicted them, created them, and transformed them into advantages. The training scenario showed her squad deliberately leaving themselves vulnerable, drawing enemy fire in ways that seemed suicidal, only to use those attacks as catalyst for evolution. "The Void Hunters are perfect," she explained, her neural interface glowing softly. "And that's why they'll lose. Perfect systems can't handle imperfect solutions." The Meridian observers struggled to understand what they were witnessing. Where their civilization had spent millennia pursuing technological perfection, humanity had embraced imperfection as a weapon. Each failed attempt, each mistake, each seemingly illogical decision became a stepping stone to new forms of combat that defied conventional analysis. Deep Space Scouts reported that the Void Hunters were massing for a major counterattack. Their fleets moved with slightly less precision now, attempting to incorporate elements of unpredictability into their perfect formations. But their attempts at chaos were still bound by logic, still constrained by their fundamental nature. "They're trying to think like us," General Hayes observed during a strategy session. "But they can't. They can imitate chaos, but they can't understand it. They can copy unpredictability, but they can't create it." Dr. Patel's team had made another breakthrough. The neural integration systems were now capable of something they called quantum intuition, the ability to make decisions that defied not just conventional logic, but the very laws of probability. Human operators could take actions that had zero statistical chance of success, yet somehow succeeded. "It's not magic," she explained to the bewildered Meridian scientists. "It's humanity. We've spent our entire existence doing things that shouldn't work, believing in possibilities that shouldn't exist. Now we've turned that trait into a weapon." The Void Hunters' attempted evolution was having an unexpected effect on their own systems. In trying to understand and counter human unpredictability, they were introducing flaws into their perfect architecture. Their attempts to adapt to chaos were creating genuine vulnerabilities where none had existed before. Commander Chen's analysis team had identified the pattern. "They're fighting against their own nature," he reported. "Every attempt to counter our illogical strategies forces them to become less perfect, less certain. They're trapped in a paradox of their own making." As Earth's forces prepared for the inevitable counterattack, a new understanding spread through the ranks. Humanity's greatest weapons weren't their adaptable ships, their neural integration systems, or even their quantum intuition technology. Their greatest weapon was their fundamental nature, the ability to embrace chaos, to find strength in uncertainty, and to turn their own limitations into advantages. The Meridians, watching as humans transformed their defensive positions into evolving fortresses that defied conventional physics, finally understood why their ancient records had marked Earth as a planet of interest. They hadn't been watching the evolution of another technological civilization. They had been watching the evolution of chaos itself, shaped by human consciousness into something that even the perfect engines of the Void Hunters couldn't comprehend. The quantum sensors throughout the Sol system triggered simultaneously as the largest Void Hunter fleet ever recorded emerged from hyperspace. Their geometric forms had changed, showing signs of attempted adaptation, but to the human observers, these changes revealed something crucial: desperation. "They're afraid," General Hayes announced to the combined Human Meridian Command Center aboard the Prometheus. For the first time in their existence, they're facing an enemy they can't predict. The tactical displays showed thousands of Void Hunter vessels, their perfect formations now incorporating elements of controlled chaos, a poor imitation of human combat doctrine. Dr. Maya Patel stood before the assembled leadership, her neural interface pulsing with data from Earth's evolved defense network. "What we're seeing isn't just an attack," she explained. "It's an extinction burst, a final desperate attempt to understand and overcome what we represent." The Void Hunters had committed everything to this battle. Their swarms of computational ships filled space with configurations that would have terrified any other species. But humanity had been preparing for this moment, and their response would reshape the galaxy's understanding of warfare forever. "All ships, execute Protocol Omega," Hayes commanded. Across the solar system, humanity's evolved fleet began to move in ways that defied not just tactical doctrine, but seemingly the laws of physics themselves. Ships linked through neural networks didn't just coordinate, they became extensions of each other, creating battle formations that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Lieutenant Maria Santos led the first counterattack, her squadron of evolved vessels, demonstrating why humanity's approach had changed everything. As Void Hunter weapons fire filled space with deadly precision, her ships didn't evade. They transformed the energy into new forms of existence, becoming something between matter and thought. Neural synchronization at 500% of theoretical limits, Commander Chen reported, his cybernetic systems struggling to process what they were witnessing. The fleet isn't just fighting as one, it's evolving as one. The Meridians watched in awe as human warfare transcended their understanding of what was possible. Where they had expected a desperate last stand against overwhelming odds, they instead saw the birth of a new form of combat evolution. Every human ship, every neural-linked warrior, contributed to a collective adaptation that turned the very concept of warfare into an art form. High Admiral Zexra's crystalline form pulsed with patterns that their translation matrix couldn't fully convey. "Your species," they transmitted, "you're not just winning a war. You're rewriting the fundamental nature of existence." The battle reached its crescendo as the Void Hunters attempted to deploy their ultimate weapon, a computational virus designed to corrupt and consume any system it encountered. But humanity's neural networks didn't just resist the attack. They absorbed it, understood it, and turned it into something new. "Now," Dr. Patel commanded, initiating the final phase of Earth's strategy. The evolved human fleet, now existing in a state between technology and consciousness, released a wave of quantum energy that carried within it something the Void Hunters had never encountered: true, uncontrolled creativity. The effect was devastating. The perfect geometric forms of the Void Hunter ships began to break down, not from destruction, but from understanding. Their computational matrices, exposed to the raw power of human consciousness expressed through evolved technology, experienced something akin to enlightenment. "They're not just losing," Commander Chen observed. "They're transforming." The Void Hunter fleet, which had begun the battle as a perfect engine of destruction, was becoming something else entirely. Their attempts to understand and counter human unpredictability had forced them to evolve beyond their original purpose. In the end, it wasn't humanity's weapons that won the war. It was their nature. The Void Hunters, in their desperate attempt to adapt to human warfare, had been forced to incorporate elements of chaos, creativity, and uncertainty into their perfect systems. They had tried to become more like their enemy, and in doing so, had transformed themselves into something that could no longer exist as pure destroyers. As the battle concluded, the remaining Void Hunter vessels did something unprecedented. They initiated communication. Their message, transmitted across all frequencies, was simple. We understand now. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had done more than win a war. They had introduced a new form of evolution into the universe. The Meridians, who had once dismissed Earth as primitive, now understood that they had witnessed something extraordinary. A species that had turned its greatest weaknesses into strengths, its limitations into advantages, and its chaos into art. General Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus, watching as the transformed Void Hunter ships began to withdraw. We didn't just teach them how to lose, he reflected. We taught them how to change. The war was over, but humanity's impact on the galaxy was just beginning. They had proven that true strength didn't come from perfect technology or pure logic, but from the ability to embrace uncertainty, to find beauty in chaos, and to never stop evolving. The galaxy had gained more than new defenders. It had gained a new understanding of what was possible when determination met creativity, when limitation bred innovation, and when the imperfect dared to challenge perfection itself.